Super Lucky Disaster Man. Chapter 100, Extra, Whitewashing Phase, Distillery Shut Down. Just as Dazai-Osamu had predicted, very soon, certain companies known only to those in the know began to be investigated one after another. Many relevant departments from various countries started cross-border cooperation, capturing one rat after another. The executives of the distillery, whose hearts were already wavering due to their lack of contact with the boss, were beginning to find a way out for themselves, not considering the organization's future at all. After all, everyone who had come together for profit would naturally scatter when the profit disappeared. Most of these actions were secret, and to the public, many people simply saw them as normal commercial disputes. Some thought it was just gang fights happening somewhere, something common in places like the US and Japan, which did not really draw much attention. Ordinary people had little interest in pursuing these matters, and only those who paid close attention to the distillery would put in the effort to piece together the truth from the scattered bits of information. For instance, Kudo Shinichi. A Wall Street financial tycoon being investigated. Could this person be connected to the organization? Kudo Shinichi, who had been forcibly taken to the US to reunite with his parents by the FBI, looked at the newspaper with serious scrutiny. Thinking about it carefully, among so many ability user organizations, for such a multinational organization mostly made up of ordinary people to have existed here for so long, it must be closely tied to the interests of each country's wealthy class. In other words, for the countries that didn't participate in this operation, their upper management has probably also run into problems. Kudo Yukiko, standing behind him, swiftly pulled the newspaper from his hands. None of this has anything to do with you. Just stay put here. Mom! Kudo Shinichi protested unhappily. I wasn't planning to do anything, just reading the newspaper. Is that not allowed? Kudo Yukiko snorted, you're a child right now, with limited energy. Don't waste it worrying about things like this. Think about what you'll do if you can't change back. That was indeed a problem. After all, the medicine Kudo Shinichi had taken was originally meant to kill. His survival was an accident. It was just as difficult to develop an antidote as it was to reproduce this accidental effect. Fortunately, according to the news from Komaeda Senpai, although they treated this drug as a poison, the earliest research and development were actually by the Miyano siblings' parents, and the original effect was not poisonous. His current, accidental effect, was actually the original version's intended effect. It's just that since the information was destroyed, Miyano Shiho couldn't fully replicate the original formula, and it became a poison. Kudo Shinichi and Miyano Shiho themselves were both only semi-successful products, suitable for further research. Scientists worldwide were now involved, hoping to restore the original effect of the drug. Although Kudo Shinichi had some resentment toward Miyano Shiho for creating a drug that had killed many people, after learning what she'd gone through, he knew it wasn't entirely her fault. Now, hearing that Miyano Shiho was gathering scientists to research herself, he was worried and expressed that he would join in. Of course, Kudo Yukiko and Kudo Yusaku, as his parents, were not happy about letting their son take this risk. However, they couldn't resist Kudo Shinichi's strong sense of justice, especially since adding another research subject might speed up the development of the antidote. They reluctantly agreed, but only after signing several agreements. They were currently discussing the details. Miyano Shiho naturally welcomed another research subject, as she herself was both the subject and the lead researcher. Besides her deceased parents, no one understood the drug better than her, but researching herself had its limitations. The FBI was also quite conflicted about Kudo Shinichi. It was clearly a great bargaining chip. Kudo Shinichi's parents had even moved to the US years ago, but Kudo Shinichi remained a Japanese citizen, which was just a headache for them. The Japanese police insisted that the Americans had already gained plenty of benefits, even pointing out that the distillery's boss had been handed over by Japan. And so, while one side complained and the other cooperated, the distillery was dissolved. Incidentally, during the dissolution process, several undercover agents revealed themselves, declaring they were allies. They spilled a chain of intelligence like a gourd on a vine, speeding up the distillery's dismantling. In fact, every intelligence agency around the world already had a list of suspected undercover agents. As they cross-checked, they couldn't help but feel like reality had turned absurd. The number of suspected infiltrators was already large, yet not only were all of them actually undercover, none had even been discovered. Fortunately, the base number is large, so these people don't amount to much. Otherwise, if it turned out in the end that the entire organization was nothing but undercover agents, that would be ridiculous. Relevant departments from various countries were all complaining. Things like undercover police setting up sting operations, only to find the other side is also undercover doing the same sting. If you seriously count it, there are really quite a few cases like that. By the way, all these years, it seemed like we were just playing around, and now suddenly, we're able to cut them off at the roots. What happened? I heard Japan has someone extraordinary. In the end, everyone could only conclude. After all, the boss of the organization is Japanese, originally from Japan. It's natural that Japan would have the most clues and be the first to find the key leads. Dazai, the descendant of the Purple Star, Osamu was on vacation. Komaeda Nagito had recently started taking an interest in the news as well. Sometimes, when a seemingly mundane news segment played on TV, Dazai Osamu would casually add his own gossip commentary. This president of a certain company has been providing financial support to the organization. The organization cooperated with this orphanage, taking suitable children away to train from a young age. Dazai Osamu peeled an apple as he commented. Training them from a young age is indeed more reliable than recruiting outsiders. That's why many important missions were given to those who truly were one of the family. The death rate was extremely high. Only an organization with money could afford this kind of expense. Considering they began cooperating with the orphanage around the same time the organization was established, it shows they were never afraid of burning money. If we start by tracing the financial sources, considering the time the initial investments began yielding profits, there are only so many wealthy people globally who could be responsible. Based on the earliest areas of operation, we can determine the nationality. Japan also seemed relatively unaffected by the economic bubble or had minor effects. Just like that, Dazai Osamu casually explained the dissolution of the organization bit by bit. Before I joined the organization, I could already see these things. It's ridiculous that the FBI took so long to determine the headquarters were in Japan. They were too obsessed with gathering evidence. Komaeda Nagito did not hesitate to praise, because it's Dazai-kun. If anyone could think like Dazai-kun, the world would have already been destroyed, wouldn't it? Although Dazai-kun seems rather unwilling to do all this, Dazai-kun's accomplishments are dazzling. Dazai Osamu, expressionless, shoved a peeled apple slice into Komaeda Nagito's mouth. You're too insincere. You used to give genuine compliments, but now it feels like you're just following a script. I don't feel any love. Komaeda Nagito blinked innocently, struggling to swallow the apple in his mouth. Originally, he had been the one peeling the apple, but he accidentally almost cut his finger, and the apple was ruined, so Dazai Osamu took over. One had to admit, Dazai Osamu had deft hands. If he wanted, he could peel the skin continuously without breaking, even sculpting it into a rabbit shape. Though Dazai Osamu had only tried that once on a whim, afterward, he never did it again. A moment later, Komaeda Nagito swallowed the piece of apple. Dazai-kun wants me to use different words each time, it's too difficult. I need to read more materials. Are you talking about those fan pages? I've noticed you followed it. That kind of love doesn't count. I don't want it. Come up with something on your own. Dazai Osamu grumbled while continuing to slice the apple. I'm making such an effort here, and Komaeda-kun only says those sweet-sounding yet insincere things to me. Komaeda Nagito. But honestly, even for him, racking his brains to come up with different words to praise Dazai Osamu these past days was exhausting. Dazai Osamu was just casually mentioning it, not particularly interested in being flattered by others. His interest shifted quickly, and after complaining, he moved on to the next topic. I suspect the special division is slacking off. The Japanese police are rushing around like mad dogs, yet it doesn't affect them in clearing my records. I suppose I should call them to give them a little push. He said it and did it immediately. Dazai Osamu sliced the apple, pulled out a tissue to wipe his hands, and dialed Sakaguchi Ango. Hey, Ango, when can I start work? On the other end, Sakaguchi Ango was silent for a moment. Don't rush me. I'm also very busy. Once I get through what I have at hand, I'll get to yours. He almost had a heart attack. His head was a bit foggy, and when Dazai Osamu suddenly called him, asking when he could start work, he thought for a second that Dazai Osamu wanted to join the special division. However, it really is worthy of Dazai Osamu. When he said he was going to make a big move, he really did stir up something huge. Don't be fooled into thinking that just because ability users were involved and the main targets were ordinary people, things would be easy. In reality, with the financial power of the organization's boss, he had also hired some ability users to conceal and protect him. Dazai Osamu's remarkable skill wasn't just in finding the boss's inbox but in managing to obtain the contact information of those protecting the boss. No one knows exactly what he did, but somehow it led the boss behind the scenes to start doubting the ability users protecting him for so long. It created unrest, even leading some to defect to the FBI, which finally gave their ability users the chance to pinpoint him. These details were all classified. Even the Japanese Security Bureau didn't know much about them, only assuming that ability users were powerful. It was only because Dazai Osamu needed to make use of certain ability effects and asked him for a list of ability users that he came to know some of it. Corporate slave Ango's time can't be trusted. When exactly will you finish? Give me a solid deadline. Sakaguchi Ango sighed, pressing his brow and considering his own work schedule. Within the cycle, by the end of the cycle, I'll clear your record. Alright? As for whether you can join the armed detective agency, that's up to you. I heard the progress with the antidote isn't going well. Hahaha, don't worry about it. Dazai Osamu said cheerfully, I'm definitely joining the armed detective agency this year. Office romance, just thinking about it sounds fun. Chapter 100 End.